right, everybody, welcome to another episode. We got the psychology student Daniel. I'm Daniel Teaches. Welcome, where we talk about psychology, philosophy, motivation, and anything that I find important that I feel like you should know. This is where I pay the big bucks, I pay the tuition fees, I read the textbooks, I attend the lectures, so you don't have to, and I can relay the messages to you free of charge. Because the more knowledge goes around, the better, in my opinion. So my friends, today we're going to talk about attraction. Now, before I say this, just know, I say this because I care for you, I say this because I want the best for you, and I say this because I care about honesty to the deepest of levels. And sometimes we hear things that we like, sometimes we hear things that we don't like. However, it is important that we are honest with one another. If I come across certain research, sometimes I think, oh, this is something that's going to make people upset. But it is my obligation to share with you those results as matter-of-factly as possible and leave my own opinion out of it. So then you can form your own opinion. I can throw a hypothesis or two your way, but besides that, you do the thinking. Okay, check this out. At what age is a man and a woman most desirable? And a term that's used in the literature is called mate value. At what age does a man or a woman have the highest mate value? Let me preface by saying, your mate value has nothing to do with your value as a human being. Whatever I say, it's got nothing to do with, look, we all deserve kindness and respect and love and happiness and friendship and employment, understood? Mate value is specifically this idea that wants to measure how, quote unquote, attractive are you to the opposite sex. And this study was done in a heteronormative manner. So straight men talking to straight women, okay? So they wanted to figure out, look, a man and a woman, at what age do they have the highest mate value? In other words, at what age are the most desirable? At what age are they the most attractive? If you control all other variables like looks and height and like how much they're working out, how much money they're making, things of that nature. So this way, it's harder for you to say, oh, well, Daniel, they like the 20-year-old guy more than the 40-year-old because the 40-year-old isn't a good-looking guy, whereas the 20-year-old is. So they're relatively close in those spheres. So age is the big thing that we're looking at manipulating. This is what happened. There was a dating site that wanted to track the messages that women received from men. There were women from the ages of 18 up till 75 on there. And they were thinking, look, just based on age alone, and take this with a grain of salt, women at what age range would receive the most amount of messages? I want you to think about this before I give you the answer. Is it, I'm going to give you some ballpark ages, was it girls that were around 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, or 60 years old? Which age range do you think got the most amount of messages from men, and messages from men saying they were going to take them out on a date or interested in a hookup, which meant, look, we find you desirable, we find you attractive, because if you don't find them attractive, you wouldn't want to hook up with them or go out with them on a date. Follow me? Was it the girls that were 20 years old and around that age, 30 years old and around that age, 40 years old around that age, or maybe 60 years old and around that age? The correct answer that this study found that women had the highest mate value at 20 years old. What does this mean? If you are a 20-year-old woman, and if you think you're good looking, now look, attraction is very subjective. You might rate yourself as a 10 out of 10, someone else might rate you as a 6 out of 10. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about attraction in relation to the beauty standards that we currently hold. Whoever that is, whether that's the Kim Kardashian, the Kylie Jenner, Zendaya, whatever facial features and nose size and breasts and curves. So the closer you are to that, let's say the more attractive you are by societal standards. For the men, it's the same thing. The more you look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Liam Neeson, 6'2", 6'3", Chris Hemsworth, jacked, big muscles, broad shoulders, okay? And they found that women who are 20 years old in that age group received more messages from men than women in any other age group. There was a noticeable decrease in messages between a 20-year-old girl and a 25-year-old girl. Not big, but noticeable. But there was a pretty significant difference in the messages a 20-year-old girl got versus a 30-year-old girl got. Think about that. 10 years difference, and there was a noticeable difference. At every around 5 years, you could see a difference. So between 20 to 25, you could see a small difference. Between 20 to 30, all of a sudden, it was a significant one. Every 5 years, 30 to 35, 35 to 40, 40 to 45. And as you guessed, as age increased, what we saw in this study was that a woman's mate value declined. Now, just because it declined, that doesn't say anything about your personality or how great you are or how attractive you are. I am simply saying that the results of this study showed that as a woman was older, she received less messages from men. The 20-year-old guys are messaging the 20-year-old girls. The 30-year-old guys are messaging the 20-year-old girls. The 40-year-old guys are messaging the 20-year-old girls. I have friends of mine, guys who are 33, 34, and they're dating girls my age, 22, 23. I'll leave that conclusion up to you as to why that is. Now let's talk about for the men. What was the instance for men? So with women, we saw it was a steep decline over the years. And look, if you're someone listening to this and you're, whether you're 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, I want to be as kind as possible, but I also want to be honest and say that if you're a 20 to 25-year-old girl and you think you're good looking, or even you think you're average looking, I mean, you're going to have a lot of opportunities in terms of guys being interested in you, whether they tell you or not, maybe they're shy, whether it be online at parties, you're going to have a lot. But when you're 45, when you're 50, it's going to be extremely different. And one thing that we notice is if a girl doesn't want to settle down in her mid-20s, there's I don't want to say concern, but if you're a girl listening to this and you're like 20, 21, 23, 24, 25 even, the chances of you getting a boyfriend are super easy. Like there's probably some friend in your DMs, in your Snap, at work who's hoping you guys end up dating, right? But let's say you don't want to be in a relationship. You want to be single and wild and have a good time. Relationships are for me. All of a sudden you hit 30, 35 and you're going, now I want to settle down. Like now I want to look for a husband. Be careful, because a lot of those 30-year-old guys, they're looking at the 20-year-old girl. Statistically, again, just one study doesn't mean it's a word of God, but statistically speaking, a woman's going to have an easier time getting into a relationship when she's 20 years old as opposed to 30 years old. 30 years old as opposed to 40 years old, and as it goes up. So it's important to be aware of and to also be honest with yourself. Now let's flip around for the men. What was the highest mate value? What was the highest desirability for a man? At what age? Was it a guy in his 20s? A guy in his 30s? A guy in his 50s? Or a guy in his 60s? Think about this. At what age did men receive the most amount of messages from women between the ages of 18 and 75 interested in hooking up or in a relationship? Was it a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 50-year-old, or a 70-year-old, or 60-year-old? Ready for the answer? Man's desirability, their mate value on this website, on this dating website, peaked at the age of 50. Listen to the words that I'm saying. This is not my opinion. This is not I feel. I'm just reporting to you the results. Men between the age of 50 and 55 got the most messages from women than any other age group. That means a 50-year-old man is getting more messages from women than a 40-year-old man is. He's getting more messages than a 30-year-old, more messages than a 20-year-old. Here's the crazy thing. The second age that got the most amount of messages that proved to have the highest desirability, ready for this? 60-year-olds. Or excuse me, wait, let me make sure I don't mix this up. It was either 40 or 60. Look, the point that I really wanted to get across was this. For a fact, 50-year-olds peaked. Then it was either 40 or either 60. I don't remember, but they were both close. They were both really close. Like, if it was one or the other, it wasn't by a huge amount. Here's the craziest thing. The age that did the worst, and I couldn't believe it, was the 20-year-old gap. So folks, think about what this means. a 60-year-old man got more messages than a 20-year-old. So if you're a 20-year-old guy, it's going to get better. There's something in the profiles that said along the lines of financially independent, stable, reliable, mature. People who had those things, they got way more, call it matches, likes, messages than the counterparts who didn't have those things. For women, they displayed something in their profiles along the lines of slim, kind, and attractive. So they looked cute, they had makeup on, and they had a picture of maybe them holding a puppy or something. Now, we can have many reasons for why this happens. Societally, we've always seen that how they show women, right? It's very rare that you see a gray-haired woman on even like on like a TV show or a movie or something being the main character. But look at the way they show men when they're a little bit older. Morgan Freeman's, the Denzel Washington's, just the news anchor, George Clooney, like the gray-haired fox they call him, right? Or the silver-haired fox. Because it's a cool thing, you're distinguished, you're experienced. But a woman we don't look at the same way. Like, why is skin so important? Why are wrinkles so bad for women? Why? Because they show age, right? And if you don't have wrinkles, oh, well, then you're youth, you're young. Going to evolutionary biology, that means you're more fertile. You have a bigger chance of getting pregnant when you're 20 than when you're 45, right? There's a biological time clock that you have. So there are many reasons for this, and it's really quite interesting because it changes the dynamic of the things that we value. Like, this is really, really important. If you're a woman, and let's say you're 33, 34 years old, and you've got a degree, you're financially stable, you're making a lot of money, the problem that a lot of women are finding themselves in, they're going, look, why aren't these guys interested in me? Why is the 35-year-old guy going for the 22-year-old girl instead of me? That girl's got nothing going on in her life. She doesn't have the degree I have. She doesn't have the financial stability that I do. And what a lot of women fail to realize, and men do this too, is you have a hierarchy of values, of things that are important. Just because it's important to you doesn't mean it's important to them. So you go sit there and you go, look, don't you value the fact that I have a degree? And he just kind of shoulder shrugs. He goes, not really. I mean, it's a plus, and look, not all guys, some of them definitely will, but a lot of them are like, look, are you kind? Are you cute? Are you easy to talk to? Like, that's who I want to date. It doesn't matter if you're 33 or 22. But right now, that 22-year-old is looking really good, right? And the problem is you're judging them based off of your value system and not off of theirs. So you're going, I value a career. Why doesn't he value a career in a partner? Same thing. Imagine I see a very cute girl. She starts dating my friend. And I go, wait a minute. I go, Amanda, I have some martial arts knowledge. Like, I watch boxing. He doesn't watch boxing. Why are you wasting your time with that schmuck? And she looks at me and she goes, Daniel, I don't care if you watch boxing or not. Boxing or golf, it doesn't matter to me. So just because it's valuable to me doesn't mean it's going to be valuable to her. Now, this is really important. This is not me saying men don't value a career. My big message is this. It matters about what you value, what brings you fulfillment, what brings you joy, what makes you happy, but also simultaneously hold the thought of what is another person looking for? Like, what is the other sex interested in? And just keep that in mind. Because it's important to know. And look, if you're a woman who's 30, 35, 40, 45, I'm not saying you're done, that's it, you're going to be single. Not at all. There are guys out there for you. Abso-freaking-lutely. But the amount of guys that are there for you when you're between the age of 20 to 25, huge. 25 and 30, a decent amount, but less for 25 to 30 than if you're 20 to 25. But all of a sudden the numbers go up. There's still guys out there, but they're just less. Going back to that woman example, imagine you're a 34-year-old woman, you're making $300,000 a year and you're 6'4", and you say, Daniel, I will only date guys who are 6'4" and who match me in height and who match me in income. Well, now all of a sudden you've just discriminated the applicant pool really, really narrow. It's for you to judge how broad you want this thing to be or how narrow. If it's too broad, well, now you're dating everybody, and it's going to be very hard to find a special someone. If it's too narrow, they're going to be hard to come by. And this isn't me saying, oh, Daniel's telling me to settle for some schmuck. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that you should be aware of how aggressively you discriminate your potential candidates for this job posting. Position is like my boyfriend, my future husband. So women are in this tough place where, if you're really career oriented in your 20s, and then all of a sudden 30, 35, 40, you're looking to settle down, there's still guys out there. But a lot of women are going to get really, really upset when they realize the guys their age, the 33, 34, 35-year-olds, are looking at the 22, 23, 24-year-old girls. And I'm not saying the opposite isn't out there. It happens. You see, I know plenty of people who the woman's older than the man, or the woman's the breadwinner in the relationship. So just because I'm saying this, it's not like it's a word of God, but this is one thing that we do see. So it's important to know that's all I want this to be. This is me bringing you the results. This is what the study showed, that mate value increased for males and it peaked at 50. Mate value for women peaked at 20 and it began to decline over time. So a man will have an easier chance hooking up or getting into a relationship later on in his life, where a woman will early on in her life. And I just really want to hammer home this message of, look, value yourself, be happy. Think about what you mean when you say the word settle, and also recognize what the other party is looking for. Because just because you value a PhD doesn't mean he does. Just because I value martial arts doesn't mean that she's going to be like, Daniel, it was between you and Brad. I loved both of you, but your knowledge about side kicks, oh my God, I couldn't sit still, right? Just because I care about it doesn't mean that she will. And I can sit there and go, she shouldn't be with him because he doesn't know this stuff. It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what she thinks. And if she cares more that he's 6'1", even though he doesn't know how to throw a punch, so be it, right? But I can't. Do you see how me being angry and being, well, you're just dumb. You shouldn't like him based on your values. You should like me based on the values that I hold high. You see the problem with that state of mind, folks? So anyways, folks, this is going to be a quick one. Thank you very much for listening. We will definitely do this again next week. This topic is a popular one. It'll come up. We'll keep talking about it. And look, if you were down by the words that you heard, listen, I would rather you know and be aware of some of the stuff that doesn't feel good to hear than rather you don't know. You hit that age and you're going, damn, dude, like I wish somebody would have told me this earlier. So that's why we're here. We want to be kind. We want to be honest. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Take care and stay safe. Bye-bye.